Okay. So good afternoon to everyone that came to this beautiful panel. In this, I'm really sorry for the couple of minutes of delay. We were trying to convince our government not to support only highly intensive carbon production, but it seems the problem is not solved yet. So today we are going to talk about procurement in this panel with three very beautiful people that I met before, and I'm very glad to open the conversations on procurement because we will be able to talk about both private and public procurement. That means what are the efforts ranging or coming or deriving from all the areas in terms of where you source your food. So this plays a very important role depending on each context where you are. Me from Brazil, I can see that from the public policies perspective, and it plays a very, very important role in there. Thank you. But we are also going to talk about private examples on that subject. I'm pretty sure everyone that is in this room already knows that we are talking about 34% of the emissions coming from food systems. So we have to find ways to solve this problem through several different options and strategies, and public procurement and private procurement are very central in that idea. So given that introduction, I am very, very happy to have with me here Sid Mehta, who's Senior Director from Ancillary Services in Simon Fraser University in Vancouver, he just mentioned. Juliana Tangari, who's the Director of Instituto, can I say Comida do Amanhã or
Yes.
Tomorrow? Okay. So the name in Portuguese is Comida do Amanhã, and the name in English, Food of Tomorrow. And also Sarah Farley, who's Vice President of the Food Initiative in the Rockefeller Foundation. It's good to see you again in the panel. So I will start with Sid. Sid, if you could comment on, for you, who are some of the key stakeholders and what are some of the key elements and steps needed to prepare and implement procurement shifts, especially when there is a shift happening? And was there anything that surprised you when you were navigating this process?
Yeah, thanks. And it's great to be here. I'll give you a little bit of a background as to what my role is. It's not well known, but it's a role that exists at every university across North America. Ancillary services are pretty much commercial services at a university, and that range from everything from food, retail, events, conferences, books, vending, you name it. So at Simon Fraser University, we have a team of 600 people, $60 million in annual revenue. We're non-for-profit, public sector institution. So when it comes to food, we're a mid-sized university serving 15,000 meals a day. That's a lot of opportunity to shift a lot of things. And so when I think what has surprised me, I'll start with what has surprised me, is the level of interest from all multi-sectoral stakeholders. So government, private sector, civil society, and non-for-profit. And so a couple of years back, we all the public sector institutions, universities got together and said, we got to do something about this. Like, we can't continue to go in this route. And we wrote a letter to the government and to the private sector stakeholders saying, this is our vision, come work with us. And what surprised me was that they actually did come to the table, and that we were able to make serious commitments around procurement. And so 2 years down the line, we all were like maybe buying 20% local, maybe had one or two stations around plant forward. to now we all are more than 40% local procurement from the province of British Columbia, including indigenous food systems, And we've made pledges to um, our pledge at Simon Fraser is to have 50% of our menu to be plant forward, and more organizations are coming together, and we're doing it with private sector. So that's the big nugget here, which is I think they're ready. I think they see it. It's a business decision, and I think if engaged in the right way, especially in food services, I think they could be a game changer. And so my final thought here is in just in Canada, which is a small country compared to our neighbors in the US, we serve 1.5 million students, which is 65 million meals a year. At 65 million times, we have the ability to influence and to educate and to learn. So that's the journey we are on. And so that's the surprising part, is that more people are willing to get on the bus, drive the bus, and move it forward.
Amazing. It's good to see that what you just mentioned. It's also a type of an educational or pedagogical ways of telling people what is their food culture somehow. And it's the conditions of possibility. We are always talking about the habit change and how can we think of new diets and ways of consumption. But sometimes if you change the condition of possibility of access, that changes everything. So I'm less accustomed to the reality you told, but I will have to listen more about that, because we are willing to source from indigenous peoples there in COP32. But I'm a little bit more aware of what happens there in Brazil with Juliana. We were talking about that. And in the end of this week, I was trying as much as I could to explain to Sarah what we have as developments in Brazil. But, you have to treat and to negotiate between bottom up and the both types of policies, the ones coming from the top and the ones coming from the bottom. And how is that negotiation there in Brazil? How do you make procurement considering both sides, since we have federal and municipal levels policies?
Okay. So, hi everyone. Paula, Sid, Fabricio, I'm glad to be here. So, just giving a step backwards and giving some context. I work in Brazil mainly with municipal governments, municipal governance of food policies. And our organization is working to advocate for food policies oriented to climate, oriented to human rights, so oriented to sustainable development goals. And by that, I mean how local governments design and implement participatory process for food strategies, so long-year food strategies, and relate all food-related policies coherently. And regarding food procurement, public food procurement, we have this main model in Brazil of this national policy for school feeding. So it's a very famous national policy, the National Program for School Feeding, and by which national government, federal government funds school feeding, or part of the school feeding costs at municipal and state level, even though the schools, the public schools, are not federal ones, they are municipal ones or state ones, but funds for school feeding comes part from federal government. And by that, there is this mandatory rule by which 30% of all these federal funds should be used for purchasing food straight directly from family farmers. So yeah, this is a very beautiful model. It's not the main feature of this policy, but it's a very important one. but it depends on local implementation. So sometimes we just say, oh, in Brazil, 30% of school feeding purchase programs come from family farmers. Not exactly like this, but it depends depends on each municipality implementing this. And at the end of the day, it's a problem of empathy and understanding of the importance of the policy. So it's not another mandatory rule that says, okay, you have to do this kind of procurement bureaucracy. No, it has a beautiful and important role for food systems at all. So we have to engage people, engage local authorities into this. So I believe there is this relationship between national modeling and how the federal government sets the importance of this goal. Like public food procurement is an important public investment for driving food systems transformation. But we do have this need for engaging people and the local authorities working on this to make them not understand, but give a step forward and make bolder ambitions. Like if the national policy only determines that 30% is given to family farmers, but we have some municipalities that beyond that demands that organic food or school menus should be made by plant-based food mainly, or plant-based only some days of the week. So there are some innovative ways that local policies can drive national policies. So it's a kind of circular movement that we should pay very attention.
We will certainly enter the characteristic of being more participatory. So I'm opening that possibility also for the questions. But it's a great country, so aligning those topics in different biomes and different realities, it seems very challenging. And as you work with more than 70 municipalities, I imagine the type of pictures that you see there. So now I'm moving to Sarah. Sarah, I actually was briefed because I myself didn't know about true cost accounting. So I wanted to know in detail about the concept. But the question would be, among other initiatives you are leading in the Rockefeller Foundation, you are expanding the good food purchasing portfolio and true cost accounting work globally. Can you speak to the integration of true cost principles with public policy and how this aligns with scaling up and accelerating procurement shifts?
Yeah, well, thank you. And thank you for including me in this conversation. And it's so fabulous to learn from fellow institutions that are really leading on this area. So, I think kind of getting to the center of why procurement, we want to send a demand signal to the private sector and to all institutions to direct money from a kind of price first, we only care about productivity and calories, to we care about nutrition, local economy, equity, workforce, the environment. So the big story here is if we only optimize for price, all of those negative externalities, and we know the price tag of them, right? The kind of so what of true cost accounting, it's next gen cost benefit analysis, right? It's taking, if you eat, I'll say the hamburger in my country, very popular dish. You eat a big hamburger and you actually calculate, processed food, the incremental increase to diabetes that I might get for eating that hamburger, and then the cost of healthcare that would be paid to take care of me, the cost for the deforestation or the industrial impact of the CAFOs, all of that, if you priced in all of those things, the healthcare, the environment, the biodiversity, the social equity, the lack of insurance for the farm workers, which is a social cost, if you priced all that in compared to what we're actually paying for food, that delta is what you reveal through true cost accounting. So they're really powerful. I facilitated a conversation, I don't know time anymore at COP, last night before, with the Food Systems Economics Commission, Vera Songway, Joe Swinnon, and Johan Rockstrom, and some other just incredible economists and thinkers that are taking true cost accounting sort of to the next level. We have this figure from this year's FAO, State of Food and Agriculture report. So we're talking 10 to 12 trillion at least in externalized costs. So what do we do at Rockefeller? Actually, it was years before the kind of idea to use TCA for SOFA. We learned about this methodology, which UNEP through the TEEB team had been advancing, said, okay, let's figure it out for the US. So we ran the analysis. In the United States, we pay $1 trillion for food. That's what we're actually paying for that hamburger and grapes and all the things. Our food system's actual true cost is $3 trillion. So it's literally a value destroying sector. And it's destroying value in the form of GHGs, biodiversity loss, water, equity, and the list goes on, and our human health. So what does it then mean for procurement? What we have the opportunity to do with good food procurement is start to price in those externalities and make the case to policymakers and specifically procurement directors. This is what we'd get. This is what we'd win if we considered a couple more filters. So what have we been doing? One of our just extraordinary grantees and partners is a group called the Center for Good Food Purchasing. They apply this at the level of schools, municipalities. And you're speaking to the size of Simon Fraser. Where this program started is a school district so large, it serves 600,000 meals a day. That's how many students are in LA Unified. And so this program effectively is taking the expenditure, the actual receipts paid by the school, and doing an audit all the way back to the farm to calculate the true cost of that expenditure for school meals, analyzing it. There's no naming and shaming. This is sort of very much working with the school saying, here's your score across health, nutrition, animal welfare, human rights, environment. Do you want to change it? And what we've observed is like the changes are very real. Actually, LA Unified, after just a couple of years of applying this, saw a pretty bad nutrition score and thought, all right, we've got to change this nutrition score. They had then all the data of what was served. There was an industrial hormone-filled chicken product that was at the top of their sort of challenging list of why they had the score that they did, coming from Tyson's. And they said, Tyson's, we want to boost the score, but we're going to need a hormone-free antibiotic chicken product. And they said, well, we don't have that one. They said, okay, well, then we won't. We just won't source from you. And surprise, Tyson's made a new product line that met those requirements. And those are the kind of wins. So like the data using good food analytics on procurement elicited a strong enough demand signal that private sector shifted. So similarly, we're running a host of very focused true cost accounting analyses. One we just completed with McKinsey in East Africa, in Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, to look specifically at the most highly consumed foods in school lunches. And we found the most highly consumed foods are actually refined grains. But when you look at the difference between whole grains and refined grains, the nutritional difference is 6x. 6x. We're literally taking off like all the nutrient profile of the grain, sometimes fortifying it, putting back 1, 2 things, not the thousands of biomolecular compounds that make whole foods interesting from a nutritional perspective. And then we're wondering why we don't see the nutritional outcomes. So with the true cost accounting analysis, we're able to show there is just in 3 countries in East Africa and just on whole grain. So literally just on one part of the diet, you could get gains of $250 million if you shifted from refined to fortified whole grains. And now we have a number of partners who together have built a fortified whole grain alliance, sitting on this analysis. And what's the slam dunk in all of this is that the actual cost for production is the same. So we can position all of this as a budget neutral, nutrition positive play for policymakers. And that's a win that's not too hard to gain.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you so much. So
Wow.
it's so enlightening to think that each and every food that we take might be 1x more if you choose a little bit difference, so 6 times more. It's amazing. It's really amazing. So I'm going to go now for a last question for you three together, and then if we have time, I hope so, we will open also for questions from the audience. So how do you see the scaling of procurement shifts initiatives to regional and national levels playing out? And what solutions to challenges in scaling would you urge leaders to address before implementing such programs? What people should know before that?
I think I'm just going to first, through cost accounting, I attended a session 8 years back in Brussels. The Global Alliance for Future of Food did that. And the time I said, this is a great data point. And in terms of influence, as I'm listening to both of you from a policy perspective and how do you bridge that, one thing that I think we can also use as a tool is it has to taste good. And chefs need training. They've been classically trained on hormone, water-filled chicken and this and that. And when you talk to chefs and you bring them in, say, here's pulses, here's millets, here's beans, let's make a great burger out of this, it's a blank face. And so we're really investing in upskilling food service sector chefs because they're often missed and not represented, though they serve the most volume in the sector. And so we're trying to give them a voice with training, with recipes, and partnering with organizations like HSI on delivering this skill set. So it's tasty. So the nexus between climate or health, which is nutrition, and planet, which is really, we got to make sure that we look at practicality. Then comes policymakers. Well, they want contract language. So we invested in, here's the contract language, go use it. This is how you structure it. This is the quarterly reports. This is the format. This is the Excel spreadsheet. This is what you ask, all those tools. Then we went on to the student-led organizations and we engage with them. So I think one of the things that we should work together on is how do we build this practical scalability? And I think that's the opportunity. To the answer to your question is, how do we bring the data is there? There is enough policy. There's enough policy signaling that we got to change. I mean, so we've heard nothing in the last week. It is the one thing that we have to change. What I think needs more of is the scalable solutions, the practical solutions that we can empower the chefs, empower the food service directors, the food service managers, those who actually take day-to-day decisions on menus. And I think if you can influence that, then the multiplier effect of that is going to be quite a bit. And then so learning from kind of listening to both of you, I think there's this stackable systems approach that probably is maybe in 2 years in Brazil we can talk about.
Definitely.
That we've done something about.
Definitely. So I move to Juliana. Well, they just mentioned the chefs. So we have chefs at school meals too. We have those amazing cookers every day are working with procurement is delivering in there. So is that also something to have in mind? And what else should we have in mind for these procurement shifts?
Okay, so sure, that these are definitely actors that should be involved in this participatory process of implementing food procurement policies. But one thing that I want to highlight is that, and that's thing that I'm always talking with these municipalities we work with is that food procurement, a public food procurement, is one kind of policies, the different kinds of policy tools. So governments have a lot of policy tools, and usually governments think that subsidies and taxations or regulation are the only ones to give incentives or disincentives. And we try to say that, okay, public food procurement is, and public procurement at all, it is a kind of a policy tool and a kind of incentive that doesn't distort the market. So it's a very good one to use. And besides that, it sets the guideline for, okay, if we empower these local actors by public food procurement, so usually that's the end of the story. You are empowering local actors, local food actors that will relate to each other, that we're going to make associations and cooperatives and things like this, and involve school community and others that can, by implementing this policy, this food policy, will set the tone for other market openings. Open. So there will be more local street markets to give market access for this production, this local production that won't be totally purchased by public procurement. So it has multiple effects or good effects besides just purchasing food from the good sources. And I always highlight the social development benefits of food procurement policies, especially, and besides, this is a tool not only for national implementation or state implementation, it is also at municipal level power of implementation. So there are a lot of actors that can be involved and empowered by this. I'm not sure if I answered your question.
You answered way more than the question. I mean, so procurement is also about strengthening civil society. That,
yes.
We are not only talking about food, we are not only talking procurement, we are talking about a change in society emerging from that. And another thing that I thought is that regulations and fiscal issues do not change the taste of the food. So normally, and so that is something that we have to have in mind. Who's going to prepare that food? Who's going to source that food? Who has prepared? Who has produced that food? So, anyways, just coming to mind. But those are, I mean, you have great examples, like with large scale. So, what should people consider before these types of shifts that you would highlight?
Well, I think the power of collaboration and networks is just undeniable in this. The example I gave with LA Unified, with the Center for Good Food Purchasing, what started in one school district, now it's a network of 25 cities. And then when you see New York City start to do it, then we're able to support Cornell University, in this case, doing research to try to move this at state level in terms of policy for all public procurement. So I think supporting networks to blossom and then supporting more and more evidence along those network nodes to get bigger and bigger effects. On the global level, I mean, there's so much momentum with the School Meals Coalition, and I'm imagining many of you are connected to it. We work really closely with the World Food Program, which in many countries is the provider of the social safety net that is school meals. And when we're talking 400 million children experiencing, many of them, the majority of them, this paradigm of procurement based on price, not procurement based on what is necessarily going to spark the local economic development, environmental benefits, health benefits, et cetera, there's a long way to go. So what we're doing right now with WFP in part is trying to create some space to imagine a kind of analogy to that US program of the Center for Good Food Purchasing. What could a global good food scoring framework look like? And how can we provide some of the runway and the space for that as philanthropy? So that's emerging. And what's exciting within WFP, they already have these pockets that are looking at the nutrient gap, local economic development. So it's really about sort of supporting the infrastructure to pull something together through which you can see the rainbow of outcomes that these examples are optimizing for. We're already actually seeing policy leaders step forward. So government of Kenya, President Ruto is stepping forward to say he'd like to see Kenya lead the charge on bringing the climate dimension in particular, which is where I think the School Meals Coalition is looking at this COP to take a real step forward to say, okay, we're talking about school meals, but it's not, there's one challenge, which is not every child who needs a school meal is getting one. So you have to tackle that. We have to get the full reach, but the quality of the meal matters. And we need examples cultivated from that coalition to show what does it look like. And I'm really excited to see what's going to happen with Kenya. I know we have some Kenyan leaders here from Pelham working on the agroecological production, which will be a real part of this puzzle. Super important.
Amazing. I think in the beginning I forgot to, because we were late and I was really riffing as hell. To thank the Humane Society International for inviting us, and also Columbia Global Centers for promoting this conversation, because as you see, it's a much broader conversation. It's not only a choice or only a shift that is about a decision maker. It is about a community you have built behind it. As Juliana mentioned, I come from a city that has a goal for 100% organic food that is not going to be respected. And I can say that for sure because I'm part of the council. And that was something that I wasn't putting that much energy. So in the last months, but I'm going to have a child in March. And the girl is probably going to eat from those schools. So I'm probably going to have to put a lot more energy in that now. So I'm just giving you the example because that's the reality of everybody every day. So I'm giving then to the audience the possibility for questions, because it seems we have different experiences in here. So if you would like to, yeah. Sorry.
Hi, thank you. My name is Lina. I'm working in the Department of Nutrition and Food Safety at the World Health Organization. And I really wanted to come to this event because we have been promoting a policy package for the Food System Summit and beyond, including public food procurement. That's my favorite one, I think, in addition to fiscal policies and food fortification and others. But because this potential of this one is really, really big. Last year at the COP, we launched the Initiative on Climate Action and Nutrition to really make the bridge between nutrition and climate action, and it's growing. We did now a baseline survey on a number of indicators, including an indicator on the public food procurement, like how many countries are actually integrating sustainability considerations in their public food procurement policy. We analyzed 93 countries. More than 80% really didn't have that. So we have work that is like lined out for us. I want to link this to the declaration that has been launched, the Health and Climate Declaration, where more than 130 countries have signed on. Because in paragraph 2, it refers that there is a need for a just transition, but also the need to shift to healthy and sustainable diets. And that's something that we can use, that part on healthy and sustainable diets, because it's not really mentioned in the Food Systems Declaration, that direct reference to the diets. And now more than 100 countries have signed on to it. So we can follow up in saying, hey, you signed up to it, and there is the shift to healthy and sustainable diets. Why don't we work on public food procurement? Just wanted to mention that. So thank you so much.
Perfect. And I really think these items dialogue with some of the examples. So if anyone wants to take a chance to comment on your own examples, it would be amazing, but as you prefer.
Yeah.
Okay, I have to. If I may, I just want to add that as we were talking earlier in another panel, I think it was with Mauricio and Tayana too, that shifting diet is very difficult. So we need to invest in children, of course. So how we how we develop our habits, food habits and diets is very important. It's much easier than shifting it when we are adults. So and food procurement, public food procurement, is especially driven by school feeding. So that's another important way of thinking about public food procurement, and a special way to strategic way to catalyze shifting diets.
See. Okay, so would anyone else want to comment? Sid?
I think there's a question.
Okay, so
And
let's go for
from
it.
her too.
Thank you, Mao.
Thank you. And my name is Sofia Condes, and I work at the FAIR Initiative. And I really I thought some of the examples that you gave were really eye-opening on the role that public procurement can have. I was wondering if you have thought about how to influence some of the largest companies in food procurement that are not yet part of your work, especially those that are public listed companies, which means they're listed in the stock exchange, they have shareholders. The way that we operate at FAIR is that we use that investor influence to be able to push those companies in the right direction. And we haven't worked as closely with procurement companies. So just wondering if you've thought about that, and maybe that's something that is worth collaborating on.
I have a comment to that, if I can. The World Food Program is the largest buyer of food in the world, right? Do you know who the second largest purchaser of food is in the world? It's a publicly listed company. It's called Compass Group.
Yeah.
And their procurement group is called Food Buy. They buy for the Hiltons, they buy for everyone. Now, they need to be influenced because it's just in the US, probably they're doing 40 million meals a day. We do it a year, they do it in a day. And I think that C-suite has not been challenged enough. Their leadership has not been engaged enough. The reason because I've spent 10 years with them in the C-suite. I know a little bit about how they react. Well, here's the thing. They can be changed, but they tend to react to clients because they are very much in the client space. And I think there is a real opportunity to engage some of these food service companies, large scale food service companies, to shift diets. My last comment is they need a safe haven to try things out. They need piloting. They need an enabling environment to do that, so that they can then go back to their business and their shareholders and they're saying, we tried this, it works. It actually works. And then the snowball gets going. And we're seeing that at the university as a safe haven. We have to innovate as a university. So if we can do it in those safe havens, show their shareholders, show their internal decision makers, it can be done. There is no cost inflation. As a matter of fact, you probably have all of these value added benefits you're getting out of it, the true cost accounting, the so on and so forth. Then all of a sudden their decision making changes. So I think great question. Great question.
Well, I'm afraid, yeah, we have this last question. I'm afraid we are reaching the end of the time of this panel.
Thank you. Mine might not be a question, at least something that we need to think. My name is Janet, and I come from Kenya. I am the chairperson from Kenya Association in Kenya, which is an organization of 62 members. I come from the local organization in Kitui. I'm very much impressed in the discussion. And sometimes I think that the procurement, you could not relate the procurement and the feeding system with the children, because sometimes is an attitude change that needs to be emphasized on. Because in some areas, especially in Africa, where we have some droughts, we have some when children are fed, nobody even thinks about the quality. We think about feeding the children first, and you are not even thinking about the quality. So this is actually one of the aspects that needs to be put emphasize, especially on advocacy, and make sure that the attitude change are actually made. Thank you very much.
Very good.
So I couldn't think of better. We will have to summarize in only one sentence, but the final remarks for you in terms of procurement as a whole, but also considering that we have here countries in very, very different realities. So how can we do that?
I think each calorie can be significant in terms of a reflection of what we value or quite opposed to what we value. And so procurement gives us the opportunity that every calorie mapped to every dollar, euro, peso that we spend publicly matches our values. And we're here at COP because we think our values are meant to drive toward people and planet and health for people and planet.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking of but I would say that there is no limits for policy innovation. There is no limits for food policy innovation, and there are no limits for food procurement and public food procurement innovation. So I want to end with an example that can serve as inspiration. One city in Brazil, Santarém, that you know, in the Amazon region, during the pandemics, they started to purchase food from an indigenous community to feed the children of this school close to this indigenous community. That was a thing that they didn't do earlier before, and it was very logical, right? Why not feeding these children in this school with the produce of their community? But because of all the bureaucracy, it didn't work before the pandemics, and now they are doing this, and it started a whole new idea of how how this municipality can support all these indigenous communities that are producing sustainable. So yeah, this is an inspiration.
Just adding, the money is in the community. They have their cultural. Well, can't say more. Go for it.
The advantage of going last is that you have a bit more time to
think about
to give a concise. I have two words to share: optimism and good enough. Yeah. I think optimism is that we see a lot of optimism for change. There's a lot of people wanting to work together. Good enough is the enabler of that optimism. Let's not go for perfection. Let's get going, fail fast, learn, iterate, take some learnings from tech and how they've grown as a sector and bring it to food and food systems and do that. So it's an optimism and good enough.
Yeah.
It seems optimism and good enough is also good for negotiations. We should go there and have them doing what they have. Thank you so much. It was beautifully happening.
Great conversation. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.